Hello, good afternoon. How are you? Hey, Tinie, welcome along.
Hi, Kirsty. Nice to see you again.
You
It
too.
feels like we haven't spoken for a while. Um,
I know,
yeah,
it's been a
yeah,
minute.
been a while. I know there's a lot of things going on in your life, my life.
There is. There
Life's
is.
just
It's
happening.
exciting.
Yeah,
So, welcome along to anyone listening to our Think About sessions. These are our empowered leadership discussions that we have every Thursday. We take a topic and go deep dive, go minuscule to talk about how you can be a more effective, impactful, collaborative leader, manager, coach, whatever it is the role that you play in your organization. So, welcome along if you haven't joined us. I was chatting to someone this week who, you might be listening, is because I'm a fellow at Durham Business School, which is cool. And my fellow mentioned that he was listening to us while he was doing his work, which was really cool. So that's always
nice,
really nice. Yeah.
nice. Yeah,
So how are you, Tinie? What's been going on for you this week?
yeah. So the HR business partner at Halfords was also listening to us during lunch 2 days ago. And
Cool.
it's especially that onboarding, offboarding piece. And the guys
Yeah.
at Distinct Recruitment, I met with Louise yesterday morning, Louise Carling, and she's on board with the whole onboarding, offboarding piece. So it is getting around. I mean, we have lurkers.
It's really nice to know that we're not just talking out into the big black hole of the
No,
internet. Like
no.
people are
And
listening.
just and just for people to know, it is on our YouTube channel and on
Yeah.
Spotify
Yeah.
or whatever podcast platform you'd like to listen
It's
to.
on all of them. It's on all of
Yeah,
them. Go and join us.
yeah. Go and
Yeah,
listen. Yeah.
awesome. I had a really lovely day yesterday as well, working with a
Oh
client,
yes, yes.
and I wanted to talk about this because we don't necessarily always communicate what we do really well, do we?
No,
Before we
no.
get into the topic of today, is we did a values and vision session with one of our clients who's a tech startup, and that was just so incredible to see the impact in a tech business that people around the table have, and doing those kind of strategic intent
Yeah,
conversations. As
yeah.
much as the product was AI, actually getting around the table and having a conversation was incredibly impactful. So that's always nice to see.
And it's always nice getting back into the face-to-face piece, even although one or two people dial in, but
Yeah.
it's that personal presence. And then you mentioned something about the 135 methodology you use.
Mm.
Just give a brief little taster on that.
So I come across this when I was part of a Vistage group, and the
Yeah,
135, and quite a lot of people use it. It's a strategic planning tool, and it's like one vision, three objectives, and five actions for each objective, and it's a 12
okay.
months strategic plan for the
Wow.
next 12 months. And we worked on that yesterday as well, once we'd identified the values and the vision of everyone around the
Nice.
table and got some alignment on their strategic intent, which is always really cool when people haven't necessarily had that clarity to actually walk away after a day going, I know where we're going, I know what next year looks like, and I know we're all on the same train to achieve
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it was lots of good energy yesterday. I really enjoy in-person sessions. So if anyone's listening and they want to do any kind of work like that, get in touch. We love it. It's exciting. So today, Tinie, what are we talking about? We're talking about the future of work, how ethical leaders stand out is today's topic.
Yeah.
What is
And
that? Give us some
yeah,
more. Give us some
it's
details.
so I'll just break it up into a few things. So the future of work, what does that look like? That landscape is going to be changed fundamentally by the end of 2025.
Mm.
Let's not lose the ethical leader approach. And
Mm.
so, what will be key looking forward will be the focusing on developing leaders who can navigate complexity with integrity and empathy,
Mm.
and in a committed shared values orientation. So that's the piece that I feel will
Mm.
help ethical leaders stand out.
Mm.
And then there's obviously the coaching approach that people are that we need to kind of refine again for ourselves, and bring that to our leadership style. And then, because the world of work is becoming a caring place where it's a team success, not
Mm.
individual success. You have got digital assistants coming out of the woodwork now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all of those things that are starting to happen.
Mm.
And so how can we maintain the integrity, empathy, and collaborative commitment approach from a leadership style perspective?
Yeah. So let's just get, like, because I always like to go back to basics because I'm quite simple. So let's talk, like, so people listening, because we use terminology, we use wording that people might not understand. So what do we mean when we say an ethical leader? So what even is an ethical leader? Because ethics is so personal, isn't it? Like what I find ethical, what you find ethical may be really different. But I feel like there is an alignment when we talk about an ethical leader in their traits, their behaviors, their values that they display. So for me, an ethical leader is someone who demonstrates that kind of fairness, respect. It's collaborative. They care about their people and their impact. And it's a little bit more. Sorry, we just lost Tinie there. Where did you go? Did you have enough, Tinie?
No,
Left us.
Where's it going? No, I
So,
feel I'm here.
Yeah. I can see you now. You're back. So
Okay.
for me, that ethical leader piece is that kind of doing the right thing for the greater good, which is what we define ethical as, because it's so difficult to pin down like
Yes.
this is what ethical means, because it's so different. Yes. But from an ethical leader perspective, I think it is that doing what you're saying you're going to do, doing the right thing for the greater good, even if that's a really difficult decision and requires difficult conversations. But I just think, and doing the right thing when no one's watching, it's almost having that care and empathy for the greater good rather than it being just you or just a commercial strategy, which is really important. But it is more, for me, the behaviors and traits that people demonstrate, what classifies them as an ethical leader. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes. And so integrity, identifying a approach you have when you're talking to other people, helping them stand out rather than you stand out, having the approach where everybody needs to succeed for us to succeed. So it's because the whole thing about integrity, kindness, authenticity, collaboration, group success, all of those things require work, require you to get into a place and arrive somewhere in truth, in doing what you say you're going to do, letting people know when you're grumpy, letting people know that I've got loads of energy, something's just annoyed me, I need to just be a little bit frustrated here for 30 seconds, but let me get back after that. And it's that whole piece of being real in the moment, but making sure those around you are also growing. So from a leadership perspective, is taking care of those around you. And I know it sounds like a Simon Sinek statement, but it's a truth.
I was having a really interestingly building on that. I had a session at Durham Business School in the SME fellow group this week with an incredible lady who's a researcher in leadership. And it was really interesting, the kind of perspective of like what you're saying there. It requires vulnerability, doesn't it? And I think there's been such a huge change. And we had a brief look of like how's leadership changed from like the 70s, 80s, 90s and where we are now. And all that stuff requires a change of mindset and a change of approach and a change of how we speak and do things differently, isn't it? And I think, and I totally agree with this kind of approach. This is how I thrive. This is how I believe you get the best out of people. But leadership is so subjective, isn't it? And what is classed as good leadership, ethical leadership. So I think it's really important to define that all that good stuff that we've just talked about that's how we believe an ethical leader should lead. We believe these are the traits. And given the feedback of research that would support that, but my whole, and I maybe shouldn't say that, I'm like, are we sampling almost the people that we know are going to be, like if we go and, not to get political, if we go and sample the people that support Trump and Musk, understanding of leadership and ethical leadership might be very different, mightn't it, to what we're talking about? And I always think that's a really interesting conversation.
Sure. So I'm gonna just dodge the political bullet just for a second.
I was using it as an example. I wasn't getting into any camp, into any argument.
And there is a lot of value that those two people are going to bring from elevating the finance and technological space for the world. So that is another perspective from a leadership point of view that offers a different lens to all of that. But I wanted to just peel it back and say, okay, so from an integrity, authenticity, collaborative, kind, caring approach perspective, where do we start? What is it that we do? And we are going to come across an array of adjacent leadership styles to what it is we want. And those adjacent leadership styles, whether it's very authoritarian or actually so laid back they're surfing into business, whatever it may look like, there's a starting point to readjust. And not everybody's going to readjust, and not everybody wants to.
It's not for everybody, and I think that's an important point to make. I think that's where I was going with that point. It's not for everybody, right?
It's not for everybody. And so the differentiating piece is, how well can we adjust to the environment we find in front of us? Like you navigated the facilitation process yesterday with the tech team. I had a marketing, learning and development team that I was having a conversation with for 2 hours yesterday as well. And how do you navigate that for them to orientate towards the content that you're providing related to all of these things, and how they then put it on, bolted onto their armor that they're wearing. And it's helping people navigate through that. And then the practice makes perfect application piece. And it comes back to our whole philosophy around application and impact. And we can get all the data we want, we can get all the theory we like, we can offer you all the information you want. What does the application and impact look like for even trying to adjust to that change?
And you're going to come across, I feel, having an ethical approach, whilst we might think, oh, this is really great, people are kind, they're empathetic, the collaborative, and it's not an easy choice always to be ethical, is it? And I think there are a lot of people out there that don't maybe think that that's the right approach in leadership. They might prefer a different method. But I think also, if you're making the choice to be that way of that kind of leader, it's acknowledging that you're still going to come up with challenges. You're still going to butt heads with people. People are still going to disagree with the choices you make for whatever reason. And it's not always the easy corner to sit in. Coming from a business that called the Ethical Coaching Company, we get that sometimes people don't get it and they don't want to get it.
Yeah. And being kind and caring doesn't mean you can't have a difficult conversation. It's because you care that you pull people up. And it's the way that you do it that differentiates you.
I think it's sometimes seen as weakness, of vulnerable or a bit wishy-washy if you want to be the nice person or take the ethical path, when actually that's not the easy path really sometimes, is it? And you can still be commercially successful and generate loads of revenue and be profitable. That's not what we're saying. It's just be nice to people along the way.
Yes. Be respectful, be kind. And, I disagree with your point of view. And I feel that based on us having a collaborative discussion around all the content around that, let's come up with a way that sits between you and me as an end result. And do you want us to explore that a little bit? So there's a kind way of approaching where we are misaligned. Excuse me for a second.
So let's just explore a little bit. So why would we choose to be an ethical leader? Let's just put some summary into it. So from my perspective, it's around creating a really positive culture where people can thrive, where people can be challenged in a way that's effective to move forward for the business, not as an attack, aggressive conflict. And I think inspiring others, I think if people are allowed a voice, allowed at the seat at the table, but almost promoted to get to that place, like encouraged to get to that place, I feel like you're going to have a much more dynamic business and dynamic team.
Yeah, so what we're working on is trust.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that I might not be successful, but I'm not necessarily going to be judged by others because they know I've tried my best.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to approach me in a caring way and say, how can we help? And we had an interesting discussion yesterday around that. When someone offers you help, and us as I'm calling us as English, although I am South African, but I am a British citizen. It's the whole piece around, oh, no, I'm okay. Versus, and someone's actually come to you and said, listen, let me try and help you. And, oh, no, I'm okay, because I don't want to display any weakness or vulnerability around that. Accepting help is a courage.
Mm-hmm.
Going in and saying, you know what, yes, please help me so that I can get better at what it is that I'm doing.
And I think also there's almost some contradictions, isn't there? I think from an ethical leader perspective, is like, you may need to exit somebody from the business, but that doesn't, does that mean you're unethical? No, it means you're doing the right thing for the business, but it's almost seeing, like, there's almost that contradiction of what's right in that grey area of like, where do we fall here? What do we take here? And I think that's why I just feel like there's a bit of a misconception, as I'm going to say, like in that grey area of like, what does that really look like in practice? Because it's great us sitting here talking about it, right? But like actually applying it, like you said, can take a bit of practice and a bit of like, well, where do I stand on that? A bit of curiosity, self-awareness of what that really means. Because just because you're choosing to be that collaborative leader doesn't mean that you don't make difficult business decisions, does it?
No. And what differentiates you is the how. And so, for example, hey, Kirsty, today is a bit of a tough day for both of us. I know that we're having a difficult conversation. Can I just give you 30 seconds just to get your head into the space of a difficult conversation, so that we can both move through this as painless as possible? I might make some mistakes, so please bear with me, because it's not something I do on a regular basis. And so it's creating an environment where you're still kind in a difficult situation, and helping someone through it, because you actually care about them as a human being. Their productivity or work or the reason for exit is separate to who they are as a human being. And let's try and navigate that in a kind way, so be responsible in the way that you have a difficult conversation. And us as the ethical coaching company knows all about that, and so let's help you have those difficult conversations in a meaningful way.
And sometimes those but they always are, those difficult conversations, or if you are whatever that difficult conversation may be, whether you're exiting somebody, whether those are the kindest things to do for that individual. Because if someone, in my opinion, someone isn't performing or they are not achieving, there's something going on for them. Are they really truly happy here? Do they feel like they're thriving? Probably not.
Exactly. And it's being able to have that conversation for them in a kind way. I just also wanted to bring the evolution of this into the coaching space, and what are some of the elements that we need to consider when we change gears and we're thinking as a ethical leader in the coaching space. And it's how are we embracing the technology? How are we cultivating emotional intelligence in the business? How are we promoting diversity and inclusion, especially with the generational spans that we have lately? And then also balancing that with stakeholder needs. I mean, there's an array of things from a coaching perspective that we need to also explore as leaders.
Huge.
When we navigate the landscape of ethics.
And I think, like you mentioned at the beginning, right, the future, the landscape of the working world is changing incredibly quickly. And we're seeing AI used much more often. And as we know, it's not regulated, but we're going to have to, in our opinion, we're choosing to welcome it, onboard it, use it in some capacity. But how do we make sure we're doing that ethically? How do we make sure that we're making the decisions based on the greater good? All this is changing. But what we need to remember is we're still operating with people. We're still working with people. We still need human connection. We still need, so whilst we choose to, incorporate AI or tech as we move, doesn't mean to say that we're going to forget about the people piece. So I just want to kind of invite people listening to be like, how are you moving forward? How is tech and AI going to change what you do? But how can you make sure you stay connected with your people?
Yes. And I think that's the key for any people in the people space, whether it's HR, learning and development, org development, talent recruitment, whatever the people space is, us as humans need to help the transition between all the information that we're collecting and how we actually translate that for the individual and make it applicable for them.
It's an interesting conversation, isn't it? And I don't want to go down a tech AI rabbit hole, because we could probably do a session on that itself. But it's how do we maintain that collaborative, ethical leader when things are changing so rapidly? Because like you say, by the end of 2025, we're probably going to be in a very different landscape.
Very different.
So it's about helping our people see that, because there's a lot of fear around change, especially when the change is so dramatic and extreme, to probably like the biggest change we've gone through in recent history in the workplace, I feel.
Yes.
How do we embrace that? How do we support our people?
Yeah. And I think the two focus areas are embracing technology and translating it to relevance for your business and what that may look like, and doing the right thing for your people with that as an ethical leader. And then the second piece is the whole element around getting the right people in the right places to help with the change going forward, whether it's stack skilling, upskilling, reskilling, and supporting people through that journey, because that's the next thing for 2025, is all of those things. Because I may not want to be in the skill set that I am currently and wanting to pivot into something else because of technology or the change in the business. And how do I help my people? Because their willingness is there. They've been dedicated to my business. They want to make the change now. How do I help and support them in that shift of reskilling, upskilling, stack skilling, whatever you want to tag it as?
And the generation coming through is having a much more fluid career, aren't they? Like, they're not sticking around for a job for life. No. They want to evolve. They want to learn. They want to get involved in different businesses. They want to maybe do a bit of freelancing. There is so much change that can be quite scary to an employer.
Yeah. And also, this is a slightly different conversation, but people are going to sell their skills per hour. You are lucky if you've employed someone for a salary to work for you permanently. That's a great privilege to have, because people are shifting into, I've got a specialist skill set that I only want to sell you 4 hours of, and you're going to pay top dollar for it. And once that starts happening and the shift starts happening in the whole world of work, it becomes a totally different conversation. So having permanent people on your books is a privilege, and take care of them.
Do you think that in the future, and I think we've all got an opinion on this and we probably align, but do you think in the future we're going to have much more consultative people or freelancers, or do you think it's going to be a completely different structure in business from a people perspective?
I understand people are now all coming back into the office because that's now a conversation that people are having quite in earnest. There are people working in a hybrid way, and then there are teams that are just virtual and they don't have an office.
And they don't need permanent, sorry, not permanent. I suppose they're the people that can have people who will sell you X number of days because they don't need to be somewhere.
Yes. And it depends on the rapid shift of how quickly that'll take place.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy question to answer.
No, it's not. I just kind of wondered your thoughts.
I think it's something to consider. Definitely something to consider.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the size of your business, right? Because you're always going to have, the bigger businesses is always going to have a churn. There's always going to be people there. But I feel like the people like the SMEs, I feel like they are the people that potentially are going to start to see a difference in working style and working pattern.
Yeah.
Well, people are looking for something other than just a salaried full-time job, aren't they? They're looking for more.
Exactly. Yeah. And with your vision, objectives, and key milestones to achieve those objectives, that whole 1-3-5 approach, what happens in a space like that is that once you've decided what those key objectives are or key milestones are, and they're short-term enough, it allows you to say no to everything else. And that's going to start happening as well. People are going to actually say, no, we're focusing on this. We're not actually going to explore that. And thank you for bringing it to us, but we're saying no to that. And so now people that are working for us are going to have those yes-no conversations with us regarding, these are our key areas that we're focusing on that you've asked me to focus on. I've allocated my time accordingly. And from a work-life balance perspective, I can't do more than what you've asked me to do at the minute. And so I'm going to have to say no to you in a kind way. So it's being able to navigate that for ourselves going forward in a kind and empathetic way.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of the challenge. I'm thinking of people listening. There is always challenges, isn't it? And I think this is why, just to wrap up, because I'm conscious of time, is like, this is why investing in your managers, investing in your leaders for those skills is so important. And those accidental managers or those people that don't have any support or training or coaching to have those conversations and to look at the future differently, you're going to get left behind almost, or they're going to find it really difficult, aren't they?
Yeah. And if you think of your conversation that you had yesterday and me thinking of mine that I had yesterday, it's, even although you have got a leader leading you, you're still an accidental leader anyway, because of the environment being so fluid and full of change all the time. And it's how you navigate the complexity of that and have those yes-no conversations based on the parameters you've created for yourself that are non-negotiable. And why not have those conversations?
I 100% agree. I love it. Right. I could talk about this all day, but we're going to be back next week with another topic. But if anyone's listening that wants to have a further conversation on all of the stuff, I feel like we've kind of bounced about a lot in this topic today, but it was all good stuff, all interesting. I could talk about, to be fair, we could have a session on all those little miniature topics on their own. But no, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, Tienie, as always. And we will be back next week. But if anyone wants to have a conversation, please DM myself or Tienie or the Ethical Coaching Company on LinkedIn.